welcome. All right, so we're going to start this out by welcoming two very illustrious guests back to the podcast. Recent keynote speaker at the Stoker Awards for StokerCon 2025, Becky Spratford, who we'll be talking about a little book that she's got coming up later on. Welcome back. And then, speaking of Stokers, Stoker Award winner for, what is it, Superior Achievement in Long Nonfiction?
Yes.
Is for Horror for Weenies.
Which we did on the podcast last year.
Emily Hughes. So Becky and Emily, thank you so much for joining me again for another horror preview episode.
Of course. Thank you so much.
And Emily congrats for the award, Emily. That's so fantastic. I'm going to paint a little picture. So I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it was just, you go ahead. I was just saying it's a dream come true.
And I stepped right on top of you saying it was a dream come true. I had lit my iPad and I was streaming, and me and my girlfriend were sitting on her front porch and we're watching, and she's like, "Oh, isn't this the one with," and I'm like, "Yeah, this is Emily." And then they announced it and I was like, "Yes." So I was doing a little celebration over here in Chicago for you. Very, very happy for you. Congratulations.
My favorite part of the whole thing was that we had made plans in case Emily's mom wasn't able to get the live stream to work for me to text her. And so Emily got up on stage and said, "Becky, did you text my mom?" And I had already texted her mom, and her mom had already replied that she was able to watch the live stream. So it was all great.
Oh, so exciting.
Never know. It was perfect. It was absolutely
very, very
perfect. Good. And everyone was wonderful. And now I brought home a haunted house for my haunted house. It's great.
So cool. Very exciting. Well, for anybody who's new to these types of episodes, basically what we're going to do is we already did January through June earlier in the year. And now we're going to talk about the horror books that we're looking forward to for July through December of 2025. So we're finishing off the year. And the format we've kind of landed on is that we're going to do 2 each per month. So, and then we're just going to go around and take turns talking about books. This time, for the sake of me not having to edit stuff later because I don't remember whose turn it is, we're doing it in a very specific order. And we're going to start off with Becky. So, Becky, what's your first July pick?
Well, first I want to show off my t-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Fear the Library from the Saratoga Springs Library. Speaking of StokerCon, a lot of people were wearing that at StokerCon during Librarians Day, this t-shirt. So I want to show that off. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a hard hitter, right? A book that people are already talking about, The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. So there's a quote that's at the beginning of the book that says, "Back then, when I was a young woman, there were still witches." And that's the grandmother, her name's Nana Alba, who says this to her great-granddaughter. I thought this book was sinister and captivating, and it's a gothic within a gothic within a gothic. And that great-granddaughter's name is Minerva, and she's the sort of the lifeblood, the center, the spine of this story. She came to Mexico to a small college near Boston to study her idol, the influential but often forgotten novelist Beatrice Tremblay, who's not real, but you feel like she's real in this book, right? And her most famous work, The Vanishing. So we have 3 timelines. They're all clearly noted at the start of each chapter. 1908, when that great-grandmother Alba was a young woman and lost everything she held dear. 1934, through the journals of that author Tremblay, describing the still unsolved disappearance of her roommate Virginia, which is discovered by Minerva during her research in 1998, as Minerva's not only struggling to write her dissertation, but also becomes entangled in and disoriented by dangers both past and present, real and supernatural. What I liked about this from a personal standpoint is Minerva's like the exact same age as me. I graduated from a Massachusetts liberal arts college in 1997, and this was 1998, so not the exact same age, but similar age. So I understood like the references to music and culture and what was going on in the world at the time. And I kind of liked that 1988 time frame. But all the 3 timelines begin to organically overlap. And so this one tale of palpable terror emerges. And again, it's all anchored by Minerva as she grows in confidence, strength, and knowledge. And she finds the part she has to play in all of the stories. So overall, I thought it was chilling, multi-generational saga, that had a satisfying mystery, And it reminded me of the interconnectedness of humanity with all the different witch tales we tell across time and space. They're all connected. So that's my recommendation first.
Very cool. Awesome. So we're going to move to Emily, and then I'm going to follow that. I'm going to follow Emily.
All right. So my first pick for July is Mayra by Nicky Gonzalez. This is a debut coming out from Random House. It is sort of a weird gothic set in the contemporary gothic set in the Florida Everglades. And I am someone who loves a setting in horror where it feels like nature itself has like some agency and is pressing in around you and making it, sort of claustrophobic and humid. I think that's a great setting for horror stories. And this one is about a young woman named Ingrid who hears from her sort of like long, estranged childhood best friend whose name is Mayra. And Mayra invites Ingrid to a weekend at a house in the Everglades. And Ingrid says, sure, yeah, I can do that. But things start going wrong pretty much as soon as she gets there. There's no cell service naturally. She feels like she's getting lost. She finally gets there, and things with Mayra are like, they're okay, but they're not quite the way she remembers them. And Mayra's boyfriend is there, and that kind of knocks Ingrid, off her axis a little bit, and all these sort of old wounds start reopening, and they're staying in this strange house that's a little uncanny, and it's this reflection on these like early childhood friendships you have that maybe don't work out, and how trying to reconnect later in life is, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's really not. So I am very excited about this one. Also, it has an absolutely killer cover.
Libraries love that. Put it out. It's out.
Yeah, I was looking at the covers of some of these books earlier, and that one does really jump out. I'm going to start my July with, I had to change one of my picks because I realized that I had originally wanted to talk about Girl in the Creek by Wendy and Wagner. And looking at the list that we kept, we talked about it as a June release. So,
that's right. It got bumped a month. Yeah.
Got bumped a month. So.
But I think it's been great for her because she's being sent out to the American Library Association conference all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast to promote it. So I'm really happy for her.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I wanted to rave about this because I read it and I thought it was fantastic. And even so, little recent thing, me and Becky were both at Chuck Wendig's book event in Chicago where we were talking about it, and I was like raving about it and saying how like I thought it was going to be this good, and it was like that good, and I was like, oh my god. So
the same thing happened to me. I was like, this is going to be good, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is great.
Wendy is so wonderful,
and she's so so if anybody hasn't listened to that conversation I had with Wendy, it's very good. So I can't talk about that because it was already talked about.
But we just did.
Fake talking about it, yeah. So I replaced that with the upcoming release from Stephen Graham Jones, which is a double book, a flip. So it's 2 novels in one book. You read one novel, you flip over, and you read the other one. And it's Killer on the Road and The Babysitter Lives. Anybody who's familiar will know that The Babysitter Lives came out audio only originally back in 2023, I believe. And I listened to that while I was moving into a new house that I was not familiar with, and it was very creepy and maybe not the best time. But the general idea with that story is,
or it was the exact best time. I'm just saying.
Maybe it was the right setting for it. Yeah, like it's at the mood. That story has a babysitter who's had some trouble in the past with making mistakes on babysitting jobs. Is back in another gig and thinks like this might be like her way of showing, hey, I'm good, I'm responsible, all that kind of stuff. But she doesn't realize some stuff about the house, there's some stuff about the house she's not aware of. And some of the decisions made have consequences she's not ready for. So that's what I'll say about that one. Great story. And then the other book that's in the dual book, the flip book, is Killer on the Road, which I am looking forward to reading. But the general idea there is this teenager is getting ready to run away from home because of bad stuff. Group of friends decides we're going to go on this road trip and, like all together. But they don't know that they're being stalked by a serial killer who's been killing people along this like road that they are traveling. So things get bad. And so it's Stephen Graham Jones. We all know what that means. I'm interested in this whole saga flip book thing. There's 3 different ones, and another one I think might get mentioned in a little bit. Maybe not. But anyway, Stephen Graham Jones, it's going to be great. I already like half the book, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to like the other half too.
I read both of those. I turned in a review for Booklist. They're fantastic. So
Nice.
Really fun fact, just for me, but I thought it was interesting. The 2 characters in the books, Harper is the name of the character in the girl in Killer on the Road, and Charlotte is the girl in the other book, and Babysitter Lives. Those are my nieces' names. So I thought that was kind of fun. I was like a little freaked out. I only have 2 nieces. I was like, how'd you do that, Stephen?
What are the chances? Yeah.
I know, weird. Okay, I'm going to talk about one of the buzziest books that's being talked about right now, and for good reason, Angel Down by Daniel Kraus, which I'm going to say is going to get a lot of press when it comes out in general literary fiction, but it's definitely a horror novel. And actually, I think it's almost sort of the end of a trilogy to his books about daddy issues that began back with Rotters and then went to Whalefall and now is in Angel Down. So it is a World War I story, and the horrors of World War I are there. It is visceral. We see the toll the war takes on the people, the places, and eventually he even pulls it out to the entire planet. That's very cool. But here's the thing everyone's talking about, and I purposely didn't say it first. This book is written basically as a single sentence. Now, I actually found some periods in there, so I'm calling it more of a chant. Every paragraph begins and. And it's a little jarring at first, but it's so quickly do you get into it. You get into it because it becomes a refrain and you feel like it. And it's almost like you're reading like a psalm or some kind of prayer, which I think is on purpose because Bagger, the main character, has gone to war. So here's the thing. These are all the misfits in World War II. Baggers basically stayed alive during World War I. During World War I in the trenches in France by like staying back behind everything. He's worked as the latrine digger, the grave digger. So him and 4 other misfits are asked basically to stay behind by the head of their battalion to take care of a suffering soldier who's laying in that dangerous ground of no man's land between them and the Germans while there's still Germans there, right? So this is basically a suicide mission. And the head guy doesn't want to risk real people. It turns out it's not a soldier. I'm not giving anything away that's screaming. It's an angel fallen from heaven who's stuck in barbed wire, okay? Now, as you can imagine, if an angel comes down, sure, you think it's going to be great. They're each mesmerized by her light and tempted by her power. I loved that part of the story, right? She could either save them or lead all of them or each of them individually to their death. And it just, this chant, this spell, you just see what's going on, like the horrors of war, but you also get Bagger's story and his father who died during a crossing from a U-boat just before he enlisted was a preacher. So he has all this baggage about being a preacher's kid. He has all this baggage about his father and all the things he hasn't accomplished. And it's like, I like to say it's like the horror version of Saving Private Ryan, but that's like demeaning to it, but that gives you like the feel, right? It's just absolutely stunning, and I think it'll draw a lot of people to his work that might not have read it previously.
I think it's really hard to do that kind of sort of formal experimentation of the, one sentence more or less, and it's starting every paragraph with "and," but it's very easy for something like that in the hands of a lesser writer to come across as gimmicky. And honestly, I haven't read this yet, but I have no doubt in my mind that Kraus is like one of those authors who can pull it off.
It really allows you the space to go into Bagger's head and to like feel his life story and see it sort of unfolding. And I'm like, there's so many interpersonal relationships here and backstories about war that are just, oh. And I think that in regular prose, it might have not come off as emotionally resonant.
Mm-hmm.
I have not read it yet. I'm very excited about it. And the only thing I want to add beyond that is I'm fairly certain today I saw on social media, he posted a picture from set, and it was like taken of him by Josh Brolin, I believe. And I was like,
yeah,
well, that's got to be a fun
that's for
little
Whale Fall.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the Whale Fall shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good on Daniel. I only known him a short time. I know, Becky, you have a much longer friendship or not. As a contemporary or whatever, but he's the nicest dude. He really is, and his writing is phenomenal. So happy to see all of his success and everything.
Well, my second July pick is Simplicity by Mattie Lubchansky. I was a big fan of Boys Weekend, which was Mattie's first graphic novel, came out in 2023. And Simplicity has a sort of a similar near future dystopian setting, populated by a lot of queer and trans characters, but does it in a very distinctive and different way with this graphic novel. This is set in 2081, and there is a trans scholar who is assigned to basically do an anthropological survey of this commune / community in the woods of upstate New York. And he goes up to this camp that's called Simplicity, and he starts to get to know the people there who are living a very different life out in the woods than he is living back home in basically sort of like a techno-fascist near future New York City. And so once he arrives at this compound, he's trying to interview people, and he's trying to kind of get in the rhythm of this community, but strange things start happening. He starts having visions. He starts sort of developing a relationship with one of the members of the community. And then people start dying and disappearing. And there are these terrifying beasts in the woods around the community. And he has to kind of venture out and try to figure out what's going on. And there are doomsday preppers, and there are like weird wealthy people with bunkers, and it's fantastic. And it is all really, really illuminated by her art style, which is so like, she's been a cartoonist for a long time. She has like long running, web comics experience, and she has this really like graphic art style that really just pops. And this book is, it is progressive, it is funny, it is queer, it is sexy, it is creepy and gory. Really, really wonderful. I will absolutely continue to beat the Mattie Lubchansky as a genius drum as long as I can.
So I read the first book, Boys Weekend, because you told me to read it, and I loved it. So I already saw this on the list, and I was like, I am on this. So
hell yeah.
Yes, I will beat that drum along with you.
Very cool. All right. I'm going to end off July with Another by Paul Tremblay, which I have not read yet. Have either of you read it?
Not yet.
No, not yet. This is what I know about the book. So it is his first, I believe it's middle grade level book. I almost said YA. Middle grade.
No.
You'll get yelled at for that.
I know. That's why I had to check myself. But it's his first, middle grade book. And the general idea is the protagonist is a kid who doesn't really have a lot of friends, it seems like, but is surprised when his parents tell him that a friend is coming over to have a sleepover. The friend is described a little strange, like it's like skin looks like clay-like or whatever, and it's like the description is a little bit weird. And as the night goes on, the protagonist kid starts to feel worse and worse and get like, suspicious of like something weird's going on, but it seems like the parents are really excited and happy and everything. And so something weird is happening. And that's what I know. But one thing I'll say is that it's Paul. I'll follow Paul anywhere. I'm excited to see him doing a middle grade book, doing something for a different age group. And so it sounds cool. The cover looks cool. and Paul Tremblay. Can't go wrong.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're already in August. I'm going to talk about A Game in Yellow by Hailey Piper. Boy, this book, I like Hailey Piper a lot. This book blew me away when I read it. This is her Big Five debut. It's coming out from Saga, and she confidently and deftly combines cosmic horror, the cosmic horror classic, The King in Yellow, and sapphic erotica to create a mesmerizing, disorienting, and original tale of terror, ecstasy, and madness. So the setup is Carmen is bored at her job and with her life. Her girlfriend is trying to reinvigorate their sexual gameplay, so she introduces Carmen to this other person, Salt, to the mysterious woman with access to a book that brings euphoria if you read it in snippets. And the book is made very clearly The King in Yellow, right? The classic book of cosmic horror. So what happens is if you read too much, madness will follow. If you read a little bit, it'll be just enough. So they come, they meet with Salt, they go and they do this. So she experiences the rush of adrenaline and arousal after her first glimpse. Carmen then becomes obsessed with the book, though, of course, and once more. So readers are just held there, like we're held hostage as Carmen keeps reading, even as she begins to hallucinate. And the images of the twin black suns from that story weaken her tether to reality. And then the book itself starts to read Carmen as Chambers' dense prose slowly morphs to reveal Carmen's own dark secrets. It's brilliant. Like there's little snippets from the book, but then they slowly change, they repeat, and you're only getting pieces because she doesn't have the whole book. At one point, she steals some of the pages, but there's no way for this story to end other than with disaster. And yet, whether readers want to admit it or not, disaster is what they truly desire. Hailey Piper's endings are always perfect. And let me tell you, when the truth is revealed, and this is what I love about her books, you're not going to be prepared because the existential terror that she unleashes upon everyone in her book, everyone who's reading it, oh my goodness, like you're going to be so glad you read it. It's going to make you squirm, but it's also going to demonstrate the power of Chambers's 130-year-old book, even for people who were unfamiliar with it. And it's really a perfect read for people who loved seasons 1 and 4 of True Detective. And I cannot wait for people to experience it. And just the positive relationship of two women and their inclusion of Salt, who's a trans woman, like it's just the way it is. And it's like, there's nothing, it's not like, oh, we're going to talk about this. This is just who they are. And their relationship is just so good. And I loved that part as well.
Yeah.
I'm sold. Wow.
I just got a galley of this one in the mail along with your book, Becky. And I'm very, very excited to get into it. My first for August is Black Flame by Gretchen Felker-Martin. Speaking of people who I will just always just like beat the drum of, she's a fucking genius. Sorry, can I swear?
Yes.
Cool. Gretchen Felker-Martin, absolutely an auto buy for me. And this one, like, I have loved everything she's written. All of her like traditionally published books have been so different and so unique, but like motivated by a voice that is unmistakably hers. And this one, like, I feel like every time she releases a book, I'm like, no, this one's her best one yet. But like this one actually is, you know. This is about a film restorer and archivist named Ellen in like late 80s New York, who is tasked with restoring an infamous like Weimar era queer exploitation film that had been thought lost for years and years and years. And she starts working on it, and she's initially really repulsed by what she's seeing, the queerness on display, the sex on display, the sort of what she perceives as depravity on display, because Ellen herself is wildly repressed and closeted, and in her personal life has, you know, basically been set up with like the son of a family friend who she's, you know, expected to marry and sort of be, you know, be a good daughter for her family who are very concerned with appearances. But as she works on this film, she starts having visions, even when she's not working on the film, of images from the film. And it, excuse me, starts to kind of take over her life. There are a lot of really vivid images in this book. The descriptions of the film are just absolutely incredible. And there's a scene, there are more than one scene, where I don't know, you'll never look at like a film reel the same way again after you read this book. And there are some really remarkable, subtle, beautifully handled pieces here about identity, about like repression and self-loathing, about desire and like what it does to you if you just keep pushing it down and down and down and down. It is fucking remarkable. Also, she killed J.K. Rowling in Manhunt. I can't wait for you all to see who she kills in this one.
I loved this book so much. And okay, first of all, I feel like it was my life story as well, again, because Ellen is from a Jewish family from New York, and it was like my family, again, maybe just 10 years older than me. And some of the things people say, I was like, oh, I remember being told that. And there's a lot of this like guilt also associated with being a Holocaust survivor's grandchild, which I experienced a lot as well. But it has, for nothing else, everything about it is perfect. Everything Emily said is right. But the ending, oh my God, for a cursed film, cursed films books are hard to end. Not this one.
Nope. It's flawless. It is flawless.
And it's tight. It's not long. It's like 200 pages.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a short novel. It's not quite a novella, but it moves. I read it in about a day.
Me too, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We're killing your TBR here. Sorry, Rob.
That's what this is for.
That's the whole goal, and it's a celebration.
Yes.
So speaking of killing your TBRs, my first August pick is, I'm going to read the entire title because it's very important. It's Feral and Hysterical, Mother Horror's Ultimate Reading Guide to Dark and Disturbing Fiction by Women. I have not had a chance to look at this, but on the just on the like power of how well she did her first book, the 101 Books to Read Before You're Murdered, I have every faith in the world that when she curates a list of recommendations, she does it thoughtfully. And so the format, from what I'm aware of this, is that it's spoiler-free synopsises of books. And these books range from like really, really, really old books to more contemporary books. So it's not just contemporary like the way that her first book did, kind of focused on the last couple decades. So this is stuff going back to like Mary Shelley and stuff. It also includes some illustrations, and it's got essays from, I think, 5 contemporary, just powerhouse women authors. And so we're doing this because we love recommendations. We want people to find books that are powerful for them. And so, of course, I'm going to recommend a book that's recommending books because Sadie does a great job of it. And so, yeah, it fits perfectly with the theme of what we want to do here.
So I've read it, and I'm not going to also talk it, but I have to tell you, like she says from the start, this is a fiercely feminist book. And one of the things I loved about it is she makes you, yes, she's very clear about that, but she makes you realize it by the way she organizes it. So here's the example I give. You know how normally we talk about Gothics, and they're mostly like a women-driven genre, and there's like one list of Gothics. She splits the Gothic into 5 separate lists and explains why they're different. And just by doing that, you're just giving agency to the fact that the stories women write are more complex than the general atmosphere lets us think. And so it was very well done.
That's great. That's awesome.
So my second pick for August is Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle. This book surprised me. Okay, it's absurd, but I'm going to tell you, underneath the off-the-wall mayhem, I think lies his most sophisticated work to date. And I would argue this is the book I'm going to hand to people if they want to understand, hey, what's the deal with cosmic horror? How do I explain that to people? Because I think it does it in a way that introduces you to it. It's not the most comprehensive, but it introduces you to it. So here's the setup, okay? It's absurd, but again, very sophisticated when you get to it. Vera, main character, a statistics professor, okay? She is celebrating the release of her first book. It's about a casino in Las Vegas where impossibly the odds are tipped in the visitor's favor, okay? Vera has been like the thorn in the side of this casino for like a bunch of years. By the way, this event takes place it's like May 23rd, 2025. So when the book comes out, it would have already happened, which was kind of cool. And so what happens is that as they're literally having the party, her girlfriend, her mom, all these things going on, friends, the world experiences what's called later the low probability event. It's literally convergence of the most unlikely things in the world, like a chimp driving a truck crashes into something, like all these things. It kills almost 8 million people in the world. Okay, it's bad. Then that's all the beginning. Then we go to 4 years later as Vera is like struggling, like locked in a house in Lake Geneva. Vera's in Chicago when it happens. In Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, like hasn't really left the house for 4 years. She's struggling to come to terms with what happened to like the people she saw die. And a federal agent who's a low probability event, like agent, sort of like came out of it from the government. Lane is the agent's name, convinces her to join the investigation because they have figured out that the casino is involved. And Vera's like the biggest expert on that. So Vera has to overcome her worst fears and use her mathematical gifts to rebalance the scales of luck before it's too late. Really, Tingle allows the more bonkers and visceral scenes to give readers the space and time necessary to emotionally handle the existentially bleak and terrifying reality that is staring them in the face. Like, it's there from the start, but all the absurdity helps you sort of process it. And, there's this idea Vera says nothing matters anymore, right? Because you can't rely on statistics. So, but even if nothing matters, readers know that we should not fear because, of course, when Tingle's in charge, love always wins. I actually compared this to like the works of Jason Pargin, like the John dies at the end and all that. But don't sleep on books like Percival Everett's Dr. No. It's very similar to that. And even a little bit of Jasper Ford's Lost in a Good Book. It's got that vibe as well. I really liked it. I didn't think Tingle would be able to surprise me, but the surprise is how sophisticated the book is.
That's what he does. That is his whole deal is, he's surprising. Every time, everything he does is surprising to me. It's great.
Wow.
All right. So my second for August is This Is My Body by Lindsay King Miller. I blurbed this one, so I'm going to read the blurb just to kick off. A queer, thorny, deeply satisfying novel about religious trauma, the horrors of parenting a middle schooler, the forked tongue of memory, and the dangers of trying to go home again. This Is My Body flips the conventional possession narrative on its head. You think you know what kind of story this is? Oh, sweet child, you have no idea. So this is, I loved Lindsay's first book, which was called The Z Word, which is it's like a comic, but not, comedic novel about a zombie outbreak at a Pride weekend. And great book. I loved it. I had a great time with it. This book is like deeper and richer and scarier and sadder and really shows off her talent. It is surprising on a plot level. It is really, really, really well drawn on a character level. So just to give some summary here, it's about this woman, Bridget. Bridget is a lesbian. She is a single mom. Her daughter's name is Dylan. Dylan is a middle schooler. And right around, puberty, basically, Dylan starts having these just terrifying fits that like pretty obviously point to possession. And Bridget has absolutely no ability to deal with this, and she is forced to turn to someone she swore she would never speak to again, which is her uncle, Angus, who she and her mother lived with when she was growing up, and he was a tyrannical zealot, extreme, like sort of like crypto-Catholic, very controlling, very, borderline abusive. And, she left when she was old enough, swore she'd never go back. Excuse me. But in the interest of saving her daughter, she takes Dylan to Angus and begs for help. And from there, like I said in the blurb, you think you know where this book is going, and it absolutely is not. It is going somewhere you do not expect. It is fascinating. It's surprising, and it's also like a good, pacey, quick read. I really can't recommend this one enough for anyone who loves religious trauma, like religious horror, parenting horror, sort of weird house horror. I'm not going to say anything more about that because it's a spoiler, but it is bigger and weirder and richer than you kind of expect your standard like religious horror possession narrative to be. I fucking love this book.
That's awesome. I feel like that's a theme lately I'm getting in books and I'm reading, is that like you think it's going to be this, but you're like, it's way more than that. Like that feels like something that's happening more frequently lately.
Yeah. Big fan.
My final one for August is 8114 by Joshua Hull, which I have not read, but it sounds so interesting. So the protagonist is a guy named Paul, and he does this like podcast, and he's kind of gone back to his hometown and discovers that a childhood friend has committed suicide in his house. And by his house, I mean Paul's childhood home. And so he wants to get to the bottom of what's going on. And in the course of investigating, things get weird. And so, I mean, that's enough for me. And great cover art. And I believe it takes place in Indiana, which is where Joshua Hull is from. And being a Midwest person, I'm excited for the locality of it too. And I believe, Becky, at least you have read it. So you might be able to like punch up my description of what goes on in that book a little more.
I mean, that's a really good setup. The place is very real. Like he based it on the place he grew up. And so there are actually things at the end about like the historical society and what's real and what isn't. And it just makes it all, it's a really good haunted small town, very flawed narrator. Like he is an unreliable narrator, but tells you from the start that he like, I'm a terrible person. Like you need to know this. And there's a podcast frame, which is kind of cool.
Nice. We like podcasts.
It sounds like it, right? Oh, is it time to move to September? Do you want to make a general comment about September?
Yeah.
Rob, please.
So September is, it's not the only month, but it is a month that is bloated with releases. So much that I went to Emily's list on her website and counted the number of entries for the month of September, just to illustrate how complicated it was to make decisions on what to represent. 87 books are on just Emily's list, and that's, you can't, I mean, that I'm assuming it's incredibly comprehensive, but like that could
I miss things. There's still things I'll need to add for September for sure.
87.
We're
87,
definitely gonna.
so.
I would put money down that we're gonna hit triple digits for September this year.
So that's incredible to me, but also it's like, it's not just like 87 and it's a few titles that, you know, and it's a bunch of new authors. It is packed with so much authors that we have spoken of in the past and that I personally hold in high regard. That how do you narrow that down to 6? But we did. Asterisk. So I'm going to let Becky start.
Stay tuned. Yes. So I had a very hard time because myself alone, I like have reviewed and read like I think 8 or 9 books that are coming out in September, just myself, and I had to say no to so many. So I am going to start with one that's a little more off the beaten path. So it's Mcleod Chapman, who you know, but this is coming out from Titan, and it's his collection, Acquired Taste. And while it's not his first collection, as I asked him, I was like, is this your first collection? He's like, well, not technically, no, but all the rest of them are out of print. So this has 25 previously published stories. If I had to do just 2 words to describe this book, and my editor loved this because I told her she's not allowed to read it because she's afraid of cat. Psychologically unmooring every single story. And what's really cool here is you get a glimpse into his crowd-pleasing and critically acclaimed style for people that are new to him with visceral stories. Every single one, like I said, will leave you psychologically unmoored. They're in a variety of varying of lengths and like gore. and maybe even the scare level, but they hit on a range of tropes and are all anchored by intense narrations. Every story is like a narrator burrowing into the pages, into your minds, into your bodies, and wreaking havoc on your nervous systems. I cannot stress that enough. One of the very cool things about this is you can see the story from an anthology that is really like the first stab at Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, like the first stab at that opening section. That was very cool for people who have read Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. And I think even if you haven't, there's another story about this like viral toy that is reminiscent of the song in the Baby Ghost. Is it Baby Ghost song in Wake Up and Open Your Eyes? Yeah. Anyway, but here's a couple ones that really stuck out to me. And I purposely picked ones that are like a range. So Stowaway is a psychological horror tale of a boring family road trip where they go to these roadside motels narrated by the teen daughter who's kind of over this. Like, why aren't they going on a nicer trip? And the visitor who keeps showing up at every hotel with her. Then there's one, Pump and Dump. And it's one of these like classic sort of grief stories, or like depression stories, mental health stories that Clay writes. It's a story about a dad using a breast pump, but it's really disguised as a more serious take on the mental health struggles of new fathers, which I really liked. And then there's so many more, but then there's also, I had like 10 stories I wanted to talk about, but at the end is the novelette Stay on the Line, which came out, which a lot of people have read, but if you haven't, it's an exquisite example of the devastating power of grief horror. So I think this is really great. I think anybody who likes horror by any author right now, like, and they want to know what Clay is writing, should totally read the story collection, but please be prepared for it to disturb you.
The thing I love about Clay's short fiction in particular is that he is such a performer. If you've ever seen him read, I mean, honestly, like just go online. I'm sure you can find a video of him doing a reading somewhere. He puts his whole body and self into it. He's he's performing these stories. He's not really just reading them. And you can see that in the stories, even if you are just reading them on the page, because he writes them almost as though they're monologues.
Right.
There's a very theatrical element to it. Yeah. And it's really immersive. And I think it works really, really well in the short form, especially.
Oh yeah. They're all, first person narrations talking to you. Like you feel the movements. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I believe if the toy one is what I'm thinking of, it was originally a chapbook through Shortwave.
Yeah, it was. A couple of these were chapbooks. That one is terrifying.
You love Shortwave.
I have a Shortwave title coming up. Spoiler. I have a Shortwave title coming up.
But yeah, that story freaked me out. And Stay on the Line was fantastic too. Clay. Gotta love Clay.
Well, always. So my first for September, again, all the same disclaimers about the just unreasonably stacked month of September, is The Burial Tide by Neil Sharpson. So I loved his previous book so much. Knock Knock Open Wide. I was just like, my brain tried to conflate that with Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. I was like, Knock Knock Open Your Eyes. That's not right. No, his previous book was called Knock Knock Open Wide, and it was it took me totally by surprise. It was a sort of contemporary folk horror with like technological elements, set in Ireland, about a children's TV show that everybody watched and everybody remembers a little differently. And it is funny and heartwarming and like very Irish sense of humor if you're someone who enjoys that, which like, why wouldn't you? But also like had some profoundly disturbing imagery and really like surprised me at every turn. So The Burial Tide, as soon as I saw that he had a new book coming out, this one's with Zando, I was immediately like in the publicist's inbox going, hey, I need this. It arrived. I read it in less than 24 hours. It is so, and it's like 400 pages. It's super pacey. It's really tightly plotted. It's about a woman named Mara who wakes up buried alive, and she claws her way out of her grave on this tiny Irish island off the coast, and she cannot remember who she is or how she died or any of the people around her. And she stumbles into a house and somebody calls the doctor and they bring her back to her boyfriend, and she starts to kind of piece together that the stories they're telling her don't really make sense. And she comes to suspect very strongly that everyone on the island is lying to her. And the island
sorry, don't bring a girl back to her boyfriend if she was found buried alive. Like, no! What are the chances that he did it?
Oh my
God.
God.
Sorry. I'm like, no!
So it takes this like wild turn into Irish folklore. The whole island, like, something's really wrong there. Like, there are sort of like the faces of long dead people sort of peering out between branches at night, and like two old brothers who gamble with each other and sort of say like incomprehensible things about the state of the island. There is there's a road covered in teeth. There are these strange figures coming out of the woods to kind of prey on the sheep at night. This took all kinds of twists and turns. It is so fun. It still has that like great Irish sense of humor, characters you can really connect with. This is a total delight, especially if you're like an Irish folklore, Irish mythology person. You're going to have a great time.
Yeah, I'm
Oh
ready.
my God. You sold the hell out of that book. Yeah. Wow.
It's so good.
Oh.
Yeah, Becky, honestly, this one for libraries, perfect.
Yeah, it sounds perfect.
Wow. I've never been so on the edge of my seat hearing someone just explain.
I know, I'm like, oh, no.
Oh my God.
Sheep? What?
Yep. And that's like also the like waking up from being dead and not knowing who you are is also the setup for one of my favorite fantasy novels ever, which is The Rook by Daniel O'Malley. So I was like already in from that hook.
Yeah.
And this does a totally different thing with it. And I just thought it was a blast.
Wow. Well, I guess I have to follow that. But I'm going to rave so hard about this book. That's my first book for September. The second nonfiction book that I'm talking about, and that's I'm going to get the whole title again. Watching Evil Dead: Unearthing the Radiant Artist Within by Josh Malerman. And before I rave about it, have either of you read it yet?
No. Yeah.
So it is what I like. My initial thought is I need to send this to anybody I know who's a writer or creative, because it is so inspirational. It's like you've both met Josh, you've talked to Josh, you've seen Josh. He has some kind of positive energy that like is just infectious. Like if you are near Josh, you feel enthusiastic, or at least that's kind of how I feel. And that's what this book does. Like he basically frames the framing of the book is him and his soon-to-be wife, Allison, in the very beginning of their relationship, go to Allison's cousin's house to watch the movie Evil Dead because Allison has not seen it yet. Josh has. And I believe the couple that they're watching with, Allison's cousin and partner, have seen the movie as well. But it's like, we'll get together, we'll have a fun night, we'll watch this movie. And it's kind of set up as Josh and Allison, new love. They're a new couple. They're just falling in love. Everything is beautiful and optimistic and perfect. But this couple that they're watching the movie with, you could tell things are falling apart, and they're at the verge of breaking up, like to the point where like you feel like it might happen at any moment. And so the dynamic is new love, optimistic, the relationship, the world is, nothing can go wrong, next to this is over, this is ending, everything is bad. And so they watch movies together, and while he's running us through kind of the experience of the night of being in this like kind of weird situation, he's also reflecting on himself as a writer. He's just sold Bird Box. So he just got his first book deal. His band recently one of their songs was became the theme for the TV show Shameless. So like he's on this upswing. He found the love of his life. He got a book deal. His music career is moving. But he's got all these doubts too as a creator. And he's like, one of the themes throughout is like, what does a writer deserve? And there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of trying to understand what's this weird feeling inside of me, but at the same time, just being so in love with the process of creating and all of that. And it's so celebratory of creating and your art. And it was just, it just took me over. And on a personal level, it's funny reading it because last May I went and I spent a weekend with Josh, and I didn't know anything about this book when I was up there. But one of the nights, me and him and Allison sat around and we watched like a couple of movies together. And so as I'm reading this book and reading like the framing of what's going on, I'm flashing back to being in a room with those two watching movies together. So it was like this really kind of personal connection to me as well, in a way. But it's just such a relentlessly positive and inspirational story that, I loved it so much.
That's cool too. It's cool to have writers sort of talking about their process and what art means to them. I think that'll be great for people.
Yeah. Very cool.
I'm really looking forward to this one, especially because as I've said, anytime anyone asks me this question, like Bird Box was really the book that as an adult really like launched me back into horror. And I worked at HarperCollins at the time, and his editor, I was working the sales department, and his editor had, sometimes editors will make contact with like younger, like more junior salespeople and sort of, befriend them and use them as advocates for their titles. This is a very normal thing in publishing. And so Lee Boudreau, who is a legend, had, introduced herself to me and said, what kind of stuff do you like to read? And I said, well, I like weird shit. Because I've always been very professional. And she sent me 2 manuscripts she had just bought. One of them was Tampa by Alyssa Nutting, which like is not a horror novel, but absolutely is a horror novel.
Yep.
And the other was Bird Box. And Bird Box just like blew the back of my skull off. And it is still, yep. Oh, you got that original with the flocked, that horrible, like, for anyone who doesn't know, the first printing of the hardcover of Tampa had a like flocked, so it's like soft and fuzzy dust jacket, which is so like, it's so off-putting in a way that perfectly matches the book. Anyway, that got totally off track. I'm very excited about this Malerman.
That's a great point, because I feel like Bird Box was so important for so many people who are like big horror fans right now. When that book came out, I was working at a library, and literally every single one of us read it at the library, even the people who didn't like horror, because like I read it, I was like, people have to read this, and we just kept literally passing the book around. And oh my gosh, yes, all of us were just like, what are we reading? And I think it's such an important moment for so many people to get some of that backstory and to see sort of that you can't go back and have the time before Bird Box, both us and Josh, right?
Yeah.
So what a great way to do that. But also, it sounds like the story he wrote, the nonfiction, is also creepy, like itself, with this couple. And so I think that's really cool.
Yeah, he can't help but tell a story. And the one thing that I will point out, which we talked about when I was visiting him last year about this book, was and this is interesting because he's published a lot of books. It's the only book he's written that has a sex scene in it. And it's a nonfiction book. So
fascinating.
Do what you will with that.
Interesting. Well, and with that, I'm going to go on to my second September book, which doesn't have sex scenes because it's about siblings. So we're going to leave that behind. This is Alma Katsu's Fiend, which is coming out in September, as we just said. It is her first non-historical horror. Okay, this book is. Everybody who loved Succession needs to read this book. It is An uber wealthy family, the Berisha family, has ruled the import export industry for 1,000 years, like going back to their time in Albania. Okay, over that millennium, anytime someone tried to cross them, and they're in New York City, by the way, right? Huge corporate, like they own everything. They're awful. They're awful. Every time someone's tried to cross them, though, over those 1,000 years, death and destruction came decisively and swiftly. So readers are meeting the Berisha family in the 21st century through the eyes of their current patriarch, Zeph, and his three children, Darden, who's the eldest and only son, and really is the reluctant heir, the middle child, Maris, who wants nothing more than to usurp Darden and be in charge of the company and do all the awful things her father's done to keep power and money. And then Nora, the youngest, who's like probably barely out of college. So the ages are like from like late 20s to early 20s. She's the youngest, and she wants the family to use their power for good and to put good into the world. Okay, so we alternate between the three, but we also have timelines set now during now, like when they're adults, and also then as their children. So we see that there's something going on. Look, there's a demon. This is not being like that their family has control of. This is not held like as a secret. So you get the full picture of each sibling while watching them come to terms with that demon that controls and blesses their family. All the more horrific for his realism, it is just oozing with dread, and it accurately captures the evil required to obtain and retain exorbitant wealth at this moment in history when billionaires are destroying the world with their greed. But the idea that it comes with an assist from an ancient demon seems actually chillingly possible. It is very well done. It is very much, I feel like it was like a TV show, like a TV series. And this idea of like, well, we have this demon, how do we use it? They learn more and more about it. Oh, it is chilling for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I did love Succession, and I cannot wait to read this. So
Yeah. For some reason, when I was hearing about it, my mind went to The Fall of the House of Usher, that TV series.
That's because like there was a couple blurbs about that, and the cover kind of looks like that.
Yeah.
It's definitely more Succession, I'm going to tell you.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Which I loved too. So yeah, absolutely all in.
My second for September is The Macabre by Kosoko Jackson. This is, I think, his adult debut. He's written YA horror, YA speculative fiction before. This is about, so I was a double major in college. One was English lit, of course. The other was art history. I am just passionate about visual art, and so anytime I see an art horror book coming down the pipeline, I'm all there. So this is about a young struggling painter named Lewis, he's lonely. He doesn't really have anybody in his life. His career is non-existent. His mother has just died. And then he gets a message from the British Museum. And the British Museum bring him in for a very specific skill that he has, and it's not painting. It is an ability he has to enter certain paintings and it just like sort of like magically connect with them. And the paintings he's able to enter are a series of 9 paintings made by his great-grandfather. And these paintings have power, and they have eldritch power, and they have power that is not safe to just fall into anyone's hands. And so he is tasked by the museum with tracking down these paintings. They are scattered all around the world, and destroying them. And so he goes basically on this quest around the world to find these paintings, and he has to go through, black markets and, plunges himself into this kind of world of cursed objects and, people with hidden motives and the sort of like dark side of the art world on like a global scale, in order to accomplish this, basically world-saving quest. I have not read this. I cannot wait to read it. Every single, piece of information about this book is, on my checklist of, made specifically for me. So I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Thank you for writing a book for Emily. We all appreciate it. No, it sounds fantastic.
Oh, I love it when there's some sort of powerful art of some kind, like books or art or whatever. Those types of stories always they're so fun. I'm going to soft close September because we're not done talking about September.
Shh, don't give it away.
With this one is new on my radar, and it's Shitshow by Chris Panatier. Which
he gave me a galley of
recently...
this at StokerCon. He's great.
Yeah. Which the cover is very plain. It's just the title. So I don't know if this is just the arc or if it's what the final cover is going to look like. But the general idea of this story is there's a gentleman whose mother is suffering from dementia, and so he has to get extra work to try and help support her. And he gets a job vacuuming out porta potties, and
as you do.
And the thing about it is that at the same time that he's starting to do this work, body parts start to be discovered in these places that he's working. And so he's kind of gets caught up in this crazy situation where, is it a serial killer? Is there some other thing going on? We're not sure. But I think Chris Panatier is great. He's new on my radar, but I think he's a very skilled writer. So matching the content with his skill, I'm kind of intrigued to see how do you take something that sounds like just potty humor and turn it into a compelling narrative. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
I love it. I love the idea that the potty humor is the way that you get in. It's sort of like with when Queen of Teeth came out by Hailey Piper. The vagina monster was what people used to bring you in, but it was so much more. It was so much more. So I
come for the vagina monster, stay for the whatever. Stay exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I love it.
Yeah, and Chris, I just like Chris a lot. And a quick shout out for anybody who can see if this shows up on the video. He does all the art for the Rapture Publishing chapbooks that Rapture does.
I didn't know that.
So Meat Ship, Fitted Sheet, which is a really cute story about a girl who becomes a ghost. Brother's Keeper by Brian Evanson there, and his own Death on the Swayback over there. And there's another one I don't have, but he does all the art for the Rapture Publishing releases, and it's really good. So
he also did the art for the Devourers by Indra Das, which is one of my
a great cover. Yeah.
Favorite novels. And it's a beautiful, beautiful illustrated cover of this woman's face kind of peeking out of this maze of vegetation. And I only found out that he did the cover a couple months ago, and I was and that was one of my favorite books of whenever it came out, 2016-ish. So yeah, big fan of Chris.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to art, right? Horror and art. We got this 2 in a row here.
We have a little bump for September, a little bumper, because again, such a full month of amazing covers, but one in particular that actually me and Emily are going to take we're going to team up on, because it's such a big book and such an amazing book and such a important book to this group, and that is Why I Loved Horror, edited by our own Becky Spratford here. Thanks for the copy, by the way.
You're welcome.
So Emily, how do you want to do this? I'll let you kind of kick it off.
So for a long time now, Becky has been hosting a series on her blog called Why I Love Horror, and having written for it myself, I can attest to its quality. I'm kidding, but it is always a wonderful exercise in reading why your favorite horror authors or horror authors who are completely new to you are so engaged with the genre, what it does for them, what it allows them to do for others. And so this is that in book form. This is essays by some of the most illustrious horror authors currently working on the genre and why they love it and why they have staked their careers in it. And it is full disclosure, I only just got the galley, so I have not read it yet, but I am over the moon because the list of names on this, Rob, if you want to give us some spoilers from the table of contents.
Yeah, it's got anybody who like I would want to hear. Well, okay, that's not true because we're talking about how many people are in September. I want to hear from everybody, but just I'll read through. Is it okay to? Is it not spoily to say who's in it?
No,
Becky,
that's fine. It's on the website. Yeah, you can.
Okay, cool. You got Becky does her own kind of thing at the beginning. You've got Brian Keene, Hailey Piper, John Langan, Alma Katsu, Gambino Iglesias, Tananarive Dew, Jennifer McMahon, Josh Malerman, Paul Tremblay, Grady Hendricks, Cynthia Palaio, Clay McLeod Chapman, Nuzo Ono.
Yep.
I want to make sure I said that right. I'll cut that. I'm trying to make sure I said that right. Rachel Harrison, Victor Laval, Mary San Giovanni, David Demchuk, Stephen Graham Jones. That
such
is
an incredible who's who of like truly the cream of the crop of who's working in horror right now.
Oh,
and like Becky, because Becky is Becky, has the pull to be like, hey, come do this for me. And I just think that that's a magical thing.
And I'm sorry, an introduction by Sadie Hartmann as well. So, I have read everything. And there were ones where I was, so here's the thing. You read the books, you read the stories, you're like, okay, this is great. This touched me. I had a connection with it, whatever. But like, it's not as frequent that you hear from the people. And I loved connecting with the why behind the people. And that's the whole goal of this. And so I'd read someone's, and then I would pass it over to my girlfriend, and be like, you got to read this. Like, well, I've talked about this person, read this. And so like, she can understand more like why I get excited about stuff. And yeah, just so personal. And I mean, like, I'm not going to talk about specific ones because that's for people to read on their own, but like reading Cynthia Palaio's made me cry so hard because her story is so personal, and it's great to see another dimension to the folks that we have been entertained by for so long.
Mm-hmm. And as someone who spends a lot of time answering why horror, it is extremely nice to, in a few short months, be able to go, well, let me tell you, and here's this book.
Yeah. And I did librarian the whole thing too, because I can't not. So I tell everybody who doesn't know about them, there's like a little introduction to each author, how they write and what book to start with.
Yeah.
And 18 more authors. So I got 36 in there.
Right. Like, this is good for people who like to read. Like, yeah. So yeah, very well curated, excellently written essays. And I mean, can we talk about that cover?
Oh my God,
it's great because it's Jeremy Allen Love. Is that? I have to probably look up his name to get it right. But he does the covers also for Horner Jacobs, right?
John Horner Jacobs. And I got to Johnny Compton too, right?
He did Johnny Compton as well. And I got to talk to Jacobs about it in person at StokerCon.
Wow.
About how much I love the cover and the art. And what I love about the art is, if you want to put it up for a second, I feel like he must have read the book, or at least my essay, because he like captured the whole idea. Like, it's not that scary. I've got you. Like, let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really appreciated that. So, and I got to choose the cover. Like, I got sent art. But so that was cool. And it's very cool to be like, to work with a real artist, and like that the publisher straight up from the start was like, we're using a real artist for this. It's refreshing.
That's so exciting. And now immediately when you said who the artists or who they worked with, John Horner Jacobs, I'm thinking of A Lush and Seething Hell.
That's the same. Yes. That's the same cover.
Murder Ballads. Yeah. It's immediately obvious that, so that's Becky's book, and I'm so excited. You have you're doing a lot of promotion of it too, right?
Yeah, I'm going. So we're recording this at the end of the month, and on the last Saturday of the month, whatever that date is, of June, I'm doing an event for like 200 librarians at the American Library Association conference as an author, which is weird. I'm also doing things as a librarian, like interviewing and moderating panels, like one with Wendy Wagner and one that's Clay, Eric LaRocca, and Hailey. Like, so I'm doing all that, but then I have to like change gears and be an author. So that's going to be interesting. They're going to be giving away ARCs, which is why there weren't a lot at StokerCon, because they were saving them for the librarians.
Yeah.
And then, I'm going to be doing a bunch of tours, appearing with a lot of the authors. I'll be appearing with Alma and Rachel at Parnassus, and I'm doing one with Cynthia here in Chicago, and Grady and I are doing a couple. I'll be at the New York Public Library with all the New York area authors. So yeah, there'll be more soon about that. We actually had a meeting this week. So
Becky, do you have we can take this back channel, but do you have a date for the New York event?
yeah, it's October 7th. It's all signed. Yeah.
October 7th. Okay. So I'm going to see if I can come down for that.
So I can do that. We can take that one live. So yeah, we have a confirmed event at the New York Public Library on Tuesday, October 7th. And it is me doing Why I Love Horror with Clay Mcleod Chapman, Victor Laval, Grady Hendrix, and Rachel Harrison. And it's going to be great. And we all, a few of us got to meet with the librarian who's organizing it. Her name is Allie. We met at StokerCon because New York Public Library sent up a bunch of people. We are very excited. It'll be at the big space with the big garden at the main branch. It's going to be awesome. Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that'll be really fun. And I'm really excited to get to go to Parnassus a few days before the book comes out. So if you're in Nashville, it's going to be on the 18th of September because I'm going to be there anyway for my kid. But I really want to give a shout out to Alma's publicists and publisher and Rachel's because they're sending them as well because they have books coming out and it's going to be really fun.
So exciting. Well, congratulations.
Thank
It's
you.
such a great book and I'm so excited to see all the excitement around it.
Oh, I guess it's
And
my
now
turn.
I guess it's back to you for October. Yeah.
Oh, October. Oh, this is going to be fun. Because also at the American Library Association conference, which is happening at the end of June in Philadelphia on June 30th, which is also my 50th birthday, I will be interviewing Joe Hill live on stage about King's Sorrow. I need you all to look at this because this will be a scene in August. It'll come back later with Rob. I have read all 877 pages of this book. I have turned in a review to Book List about this book. I was not feeling confident that this book would be worth the wait, but I was wrong, thankfully. This is his first standalone novel in nearly 10 years. When it comes out, it'll have been 9.5 years since, almost like exactly 9.5 years since The Fireman came out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this takes inspiration from Tolkien. Like this is like, there's a lot of Tolkien in here, and the dragon is reminiscent of The Hobbit, okay? So we get introduced to readers, and I love this because the setup is simple. It is nothing like the setup. So you get introduced to readers. Readers are introduced to Arthur, Colin, Allison, and then Donna and Donovan, who are twins. And they're all like fairly wealthy students at a small Maine college, and it's 1989. And then there's Gwen, is their sixth friend. She's a high school townie. Her mom works for Colin's uber wealthy family, like really wealthy, like the Bershishas in Alma's book, okay? So, and he lives there. He's like a local. And so the Arthur, there's like this backstory that here's the thing about the book. There's a lot of detail. All of them matter. Sometimes when books are like this big, you're like, oh, you could have cut stuff. No, Joe Hill does a really good job. The details matter because Arthur's mom is in jail. Arthur's black. His mom is in jail. The rest of them are all white. But they're varying levels of, wealth. His mom's in jail because she was an activist and a pacifist. But when she was doing some kind of activism, somebody did die as a result. So he falls into debt, though, with local drug dealers. Basically, he's trying to pay for his mom to be protected in prison. Okay. Mm-hmm. So he gets really deep into it. He works at the library in the rare books and he has to steal them to like pay, and it's breaking his heart. So the group is like, no, we got this. Colin's grandpa, who's also, by the way, in 1989 dying of AIDS, is openly gay. And there's a lot about that in there too. He has like this paranormal obsession and they have lots of money, right? So the group tries to summon a dragon to take care of the problem, and it works. King Sorrow emerges. They are shocked, right? And it's a winter evening. That they are then forced to pay a price for his work, not just to kill the people that are after Arthur, but to provide a name of a person to be sacrificed to the dragon every single year. It will always happen around New Year's, and that person will die in Easter. So that's your setup. So it starts in 1989, and then there are 5 books, and it goes through to 2022. Basically, you're brought back every 5 years. and you watch the unintended consequences of their choices. Because, you know, they're trying to think about it. Like, we want to kill these bad guys, right? Like all these people. Their choices reverberate through time and space. And you get each different people's perspectives. So real history, because there's real history in here. There's like the Oklahoma City bombings and like Saddam Hussein and 9/11. Like, it's all in there. You watch that, so it reverberates through time and space, and you get this unsettling verisimilitude because the six friends are bearing this secretive, unshakable burden, but it's also getting harder to hide. Like, a dragon is doing these things, and people are noticing, okay? And these are real things that happened, and he doesn't hide. Joe Hill isn't like, oh, it was so easy to hide that a dragon did this. No. Like, he addresses the issue that, like, how is the government going to cover this up? Also, you watch this through line of the history of technology, like very intentionally. We talk about the first personal computers and Arthur scanning some of these rare books. And then over time, we watch technology start to play a really big part in the story, down to up to like cell phones. So it's remarkably well paced. The chapters are short. It's character centered. It's got unrelenting dread. And at every Easter, it escalates to pure terror because we know someone's going to die. But it pits the computer age versus folk tales, very clearly uses dragons, trolls, like they're in our human history for a reason. And he like tries to explain how they could still be in our world. But it also, here's the thing. It seriously looks at the cost of power and what people will do for power. So the real horror in the book is that there are plenty of dragons to go around. And it was really unsettling. And I was really impressed. I was ready to be like, oh, bloat it. No, it's not bloated. The details are built very clearly throughout. And checking in every 5 years was a really great way to see how the people have aged, how their relationships have been harmed. And it's like the worst found family ever because they do all love each other, but they met when they were like teenagers, right? And they become wildly different people. And they become wildly different people than they would have been without this dragon. Dude, and this dragon is mean. This is not a nice dragon.
Amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. It's always so nice when authors earn a page count like that.
Yeah, because I'm like, cut, like for other people, but not this one. I thought it was worth it because he had something to say about it.
Wonderful.
And the story ends on Good Friday. Boom. Every Easter someone dies. It was great.
Wow.
Perfect. Okay, my first for October is Crafting for Sinners by Jenny Kiefer. Now, Jenny was nominated for first novel this year at the Stokers for her book
This Wretched Valley.
Oh my God, thank you. I was like, my brain was just giving me the phrase Uncanny Valley, and I was like, that's not the title, brain. What are we doing? It's very hot. We're on day 4 of a heat wave. My brain is dribbling out my ears. My apologies. Anyway, I loved This Wretched Valley. It had this incredible hook, which was basically, what if the Dyatlov Pass, mystery was a horror novel set in, the backwoods of Kentucky, and it was about a rock climber. Like, that book just took me all the way to where I wanted to go. So this one, Crafting for Sinners, her second novel, is about a queer woman who gets fired from her job in this tiny Kentucky town. She works at a craft store that's owned by a megachurch that sort of dominates all cultural life in the town. And it has that wonderful cover. Thank you, Becky. So she is fired from her job because the owners of the store find out that she's a lesbian and that she lives with her girlfriend. And she gets locked in to the store and, of course, has to find a way to survive the terror that comes after her using only the craft supplies available to her. And I am just like, I'm a crafter myself. I am so in. And Jenny also just like is a crafter, and I know that she knows what she's doing. She makes these incredible little book pins for StokerCon.
Mine's
every year.
Upstairs. Yeah,
Mine
I got
is
one
right
for my
here.
A
tiny little horror for weenies, 3-dimensional pin. Just like an absolute treasure. One of my favorite things anyone has ever given me. And I haven't read this yet, but all I need is that hook and like my previous experience with this Wretched Valley, and I am 100,000% in.
I'm going to Louisville next week.
I have been to her store. It's great.
So
I
yeah,
haven't,
that's
but I
definitely
really want to.
Destination. That's one of the reasons that city was chosen, was to be able to go to Butcher Cabin Books for sure. Yeah. Oh, I guess it's my turn. Hey, that's why you guys are so quiet.
Yep.
All right, my first choice for October is The Flesh King by Richard Kadrey. This is the second book in a duology of novellas that is put out by, I believe, Titan. Yeah, Titan. And so the first one is called The Pale House Devil. It came out right around the time that The Dead Take the A Train came out, his book that he co-authored with Cassandra Khaw. And slim little novel, but the premise is pretty cool. It's a pair of like mercenary kind of assassin people, like muscle people. One of them is a living person who kills undead people. The other person is an undead person who kills living people, and they're paired. They have this is Pale House Devil I'm talking about now. A job goes wrong in New York, so they have to like get out of town until like things cool down. And so when they're on the road, someone hires them to take care of a demon in a house. In this book, The Flesh King, they are now making their way back into New York with someone that they met in this book, and trying to get back in the good graces of the people that they were working for there. And they have to, the kind of buy back in is a job they have to do where they have to kill this thing called the Flesh King that's making a bloody mess of New York City. They're quick. They're really well done, easy to read, well paced. And it's got this kind of just soupçon of like cosmic horror that I really like. And so I like the Pale House Devil very much, and I'm excited to see where he takes those characters next.
I also really liked Pale House Devil, and I just think he's such a talent. I'm happy to read anything he writes pretty much forever.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And a super nice guy too.
Super nice guy. Nice. Oh my God. With amazing stories.
Yes. All right, my turn for my second book in, what month are we in?
October.
No, I knew that. I was just being, So this one is Her Wicked Roots by Tanya Pell. So this is a, creepy queer retelling of Hawthorne's Rappaccini's Daughter, which you don't have to know to enjoy this book, which I knew the story, but I always appreciate a retelling where the original is conveyed within the story. But that is in the marketing. So in that, I'm going to not tell you what that's about, because I'm going to tell you what this one's about. So our main character, who is telling 99.9% of the story, is Cordelia, but she goes by Cordy. Okay. So this is England. It's like, it's not like specifically England. It's like, Englandish. It's England in the Victorian era. So Cordy lives in an orphanage. She's lived there her whole life, but she has aged out, but is still there working because her brother had aged out and left and gone to this other town, and they had stayed in touch. And then all of a sudden she stopped hearing from him. So she finally gets the guts and saves up the money to just run away. Even though she's still like indentured to them. So she goes to this town, and it's perfect. Like on her way, they're like, "Are you sure you want to go to that town? That's not the best town to go to, Of course I want to go there. My brother's there, right?" When she gets there, shockingly, everyone denies having known her brother, despite actual proof that he was there, including a young kid confirming it. So she's desperate for answers. She's like out of money. She got to the end of the line to this town that everyone said to stay away from. So she gets told that the last place he was this manor called Edenfield. And it's like creepy and secluded and all those things. So she kind of just walks up and goes to the door and gets herself a job. It's the home of a botanist, Lady Evangeline. By the way, botanical horror is like so hot right now. Like
I'm so into it.
It's so cool, right? So it's a lush, but surprisingly not disconcerting estate. And it's all women, right? And it's very clear that there's just only women there, that men aren't welcome. But she also knows her brother had been there. Okay, she has proof. The all-female staff pray to the garden, which she's like, okay, well, we used to pray at the orphanage. What's this? And the lady's mysterious daughters, Primrose and Briar, are seemingly full of life, but they're kept locked away. And the servants who tend to them have to wear masks and gloves. There's also some.
I'm sure it's fine.
There are also some servants who are deathly ill, and they're both actively dying. One makes it, though, thank goodness. So readers follow Cordy as she unravels these layers of poisonous secrets, searches for her brother, and falls in love with Briar, one of the daughters. So will Enfield be the place where Cordy can finally thrive, or would she be called to the garden? Because that's what they talk about all the time. So and so is called to the garden. I read a few years ago Tripping Arcadia by Maquist. This is great. It also feels a lot like Mexican Gothic in many ways, but it has a Gone Girl-esque twist that will plant this story's wicked roots deep into your soul. And I told Tanya at StokerCon that there's a Gone Girl-esque twist. She's like, you're right, there is. Why aren't we marketing it that way? I'm like, oh, it is. I mean, it is. Without that, it is. Sorry, I really liked it. It's Tanya's first major release with a Big Five publisher. It will be fun. It will be fun for readers.
I am really glad you two connected at StokerCon. I knew that you were going to get on like a house of fire.
You told me. Yeah, we did. We got along great.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
All right. So my second for October is also a nonfiction book. It is Uncanny Valley Girls, Essays on Horror, Survival, and Love by Zephyr Lazowski. This is an essay collection about horror movies. So obviously I'm there, right? It is about specifically like the beauty to be found in horror movies and the twinning of like beauty and pain, or beauty and violence, or beauty and cruelty. And it's one of those essay collections that's sort of a blend of memoir and critique and theory and just sort of like cultural criticism. So for Lazowski, she's a trans woman. She is someone who has loved horror movies and found a lot of like connection and comfort in them throughout her life. So this is an exploration of, horror and sickness and disability, horror and gender and being trans, horror and the sort of like predator victim dichotomy, and honestly, and how do you live in a world that wants you dead? And this immediately caught my eye, and I am really, really excited to read it. And not just because Zephyr actually used to intern for my husband when he worked at the Moth, but also because of that. I've never actually met her. Very, very excited about this one, and great title, honestly.
Great title.
Very cool. Yeah.
That's
and the cover looks great too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I love all the nonfiction that is coming up in this list. Very excited about that. But now we're going to talk about my second one for October. Is not a small book by any means. It is this big, and it is Tom's Crossing by Mark Z. Danielewski. Well, I want to acknowledge right up front, it's not necessarily horror. It's more of a Western. Although I'm only, so it's 1,230 pages. I'm on page like 66, which is, for some books it's a lot. I'm barely scraping the surface, but already maybe someone came back from the dead. So I will tease that. But here's the story. The basics, the promotion that they're making really right now is very basic. There's these two teenage kids who become friends. And at some point they discover that there are two horses that are set to be slaughtered, and they don't want them to be killed. So they set out to save these horses. And the story comes from that. The way that it's written so far is in a very like specific kind of dialecty thing where it reads like old timey Western, but it takes place in like the early 80s in Utah, in a town called Orvop, which if you change the letters around is Provo, which took me way too long to figure out. But so it takes place in Utah in the early 80s, but it's written like an old timey Western, like the way that the language is, it feels very like old Western. But there's not a lot to like that they're putting out there, but it's written in a way where it is referring back to the events of this time in the early 80s. So we're kind of reading it as a present day in the 80s, but it's also like it's obvious that like we're referring like it's a thing of legend for this town, for this area. Some big thing is like a very big historical event for this town, and so it's being referred back to, but we see it as it's going on, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
We are going through it as it's going on, but like it's talked about as this big thing that happened as well. So it just feels like it's going to have some sort of like epic story kind of like outcome, not only just because of the size, but because of the way the events are referred to as such a big deal. And like, people, this person thinks this happened, this person says this happened. It's a thing of like huge thing of myth for this town. So it's unfolding really cool so far. And of note, there are no formatting irregularities.
I was going to ask, like, you don't have to like turn the book, and
it is very straightforward the entire time. There's nothing unusual about it other than the fact that like
that it could hurt you if you dropped it on your foot.
It is massive. It's got to be over 600,000 words. And of note, I was looking at this with my girlfriend, and she thinks it's got a bit of like a Bible-ish type of font, and I'm wondering if that was intentional or not. It is Utah, so there could be something to that. I haven't found too many overt religious references, but as they leave town with these horses, there are 9 gates they have to go through and things. So like there are like some maybe subtle religious references, and I'm excited to see where that goes. But it's a big undertaking. It's a lot of reading.
Good luck.
Yeah.
So now we're moving on to November, and now I'm going to be talking about books that I haven't read yet, but that I'm going to be reviewing. So I just want to give a really quick shout out to the July issue of Library Journal, where every year I write a horror genre preview, and it's meant to cover books from August to like January. And so one of the things about doing that, it's publishing July 1st, but I wrote it back in April. Hence is the way publishing works, right? So I like claimed a whole bunch of books coming out the rest of the year to review as I'm reading it, right? So this is one that just caught my eye immediately. It's called The Villa Once Beloved by Victor Manibo. And it seems like it's like a Gothic from the Philippines, which I thought was kind of cool. Yeah. So basically, Villas, and I'm going to probably say it wrong, but Sepulveda is a storied relic of Philippines past. It's a Spanish colonial manor. Its moldering stonework is filled with century-old heirlooms. It's nestled in a remote coconut plantation, and the family patriarch dies. And one of the taglines for this is, "Some legacies are best left buried." So the far-flung family returns to that ancestral home. Filipino-American student Adrian invites his college girlfriend Sophie, a transracial adoptee who knows little about her own Filipino heritage. Is Sophie. She's not related to them, but like she's, Filipino, to the funeral of a man who is entwined with the history of the country itself. So Sophie, and she's the one who's the adoptee, learns that there's more to the Sepulvedas than the grand tradition of political and entrepreneurial success. Adrian's relatives clash viciously amid grief. Between grief, confusion, and questions about the family curse that their matriarch refuses to answer. And then a landslide traps them all in the villa. Secrets emerge, sins are revealed, just things that are intimately personal and unthinkably public. There's fact, there's folklore, there's fiction. And what's kind of neat is Sophie's there sort of as our eyes, right? She's the center of the reckoning. Did a mythical demon really kill Adrian's grandfather? How complicated are these people and the country that she never knew, right? Oppressive history. So she's got to decide who to trust and whom to run away from. And I think it's kind of neat because we've got that feel of the Gothic from a different perspective, but with that transracial adoption angle, I really think I'm excited to see how that is done, to see how that adds to just the unease of the story.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this one too. I also haven't read it. I just am always Basically, anytime I get a setting that we don't see a lot in like American horror, publishing, I'm like, give it to me now.
That's what I did. I actually went, I am reviewing this. My review is due. I'm looking here on August 5th. I'm like, I am reviewing this. Thank you. Please and thank you.
Amazing. Well, speaking of family curses, my first November pick is Cursed Daughters by Oyinkan Braithwaite. She's the author of My Sister the Serial Killer, which was a real sleeper hit, a cult favorite, great book. Funny, sharp, weird. So if you've read that, you probably have a sense of her tone and her writing. This is and that was also quite a short book. This is a full-length novel. It is about a young woman, Nicky, who is born on the day of her cousin's death. And so her entire family in Lagos becomes absolutely beyond the shadow of a doubt convinced that she is the reincarnation of her cousin. On top of this, there is a family curse sort of passed down among the women of this family that no man will call your house his home. Basically, you're doomed to not have like a satisfying or lifelong romantic relationship. But when she falls in love, she is, of course, bound and determined to conquer the family curse. She starts, and this is a contemporary set novel, but she starts going into sort of the darker, more spiritual corners of Lagos, looking for ways to break the curse. And this is an avenue that has not gone well for the other women in her family who've tried it. I'm very, very excited to read this one. It's got that, sort of modernity versus folk tradition tension that I always really like in a novel. And also, she's just a really funny writer, and I'm happy to see her back again with a new story.
I'll pop in to say I do not have selections for November, December, so it's going to just go back and forth between Becky and Emily.
My second November title. This is another one with a real banger of a cover. Go seek it out. This is I'll Make a Spectacle of You by Beatrice Winifred Eicher. This is off Run For It, which is Hachette's new horror imprint. They're just starting to release titles this summer, so I'm going to be very excited to see what that whole slate of books look like. This is a debut novel. Beatrice Winifred Eicher. It's a Southern Gothic set in an old HB. I always mix up the HBCU. I always mix up the letters in that acronym. It's historically Black colleges and universities. So this is about Zora, who is a grad student in Appalachian studies at this university. And her thesis advisor gives her a diary and says, oh, you should do some research into the local folklore. There's a beast that's like reputed to be roaming the woods around campus. But nobody in the community will talk to her about this as she starts trying to research it. And this leads her to do more research and find out about a secret society that has ties to both the college and this beast in the woods. As she delves deeper into her investigation, she starts to have visions of the past. Her grasp on reality starts to slip. And then when a student goes missing, the whole thing kicks into high gear. So I'm very excited about this. This is everything I like in a novel. This is sort of like oppressive woods with something weird hiding in them. This is some like, dark academia, Southern Gothic. This is a debut from a new voice, which I'm always like, bring more people into this genre. So yeah, very excited about this one as well.
I'm excited about both your books because I'm actually reviewing both of them in my
perfect
October column for Library Journal. And I just set up with the people that run for it, with the library marketing team at Hachette, to do an interview with Eicher about this book, because I do an interview in every issue. And I'm so excited about that one specifically. And My Sister the Serial Killer, I cannot talk about how much I love that book. So I was like, I'm doing this book. And Library Journal was like, well, we have the Braithwaite book as literary fiction, but let me see if we can steal it back for horror. And they did it. They got it back for me. So I'm so excited.
Yeah, she is not someone who adheres to genre constraints at all.
and because I do a column for them and it's not like the reviews under the horror, they let me have a little more latitude as well, which is really nice. So I'm excited. But then coming back to me to sort of cap off November, I want to talk about, again, Rob's shirt and Shortwave, because, we bring it back. There we go. Yeah. So Shortwave has this great series. And again, I found this when I was doing my research and I'm like, gimme, gimme, gimme. They do this great series called Killer VHS. So this is actually, I'm going to talk about the 7th book in the series that's coming out. But let me talk about the series for a minute. So the covers of these are great. They're made like old VHS tapes. And Brian McCauley's Candy Cane Kills was one of the first, and I reviewed that. And Tanya Pell, I talked about, had one. All of
Cicada.
The Cicada. All of these books in this series somehow have to do with like VHS, old VHS tapes or movies. And they're all figured out and introduced in a really unique way. And they're short. They're novellas. They're one sitting reads, and it's supposed to be like you're sitting down and watching this as a movie. They're both incorporate that, and they're written like a movie. So the one that's number 7 is by an author I really like, especially when she writes novellas, is Laurel Hightower. And it's called The Long, Low Whistle. And look, all I needed to know was it was Laurel Hightower writing a novella, and it was part of the Killer VHS series, and I was sold. Like, these are just great books, all of them, well edited, interesting, fun, and original. So all that's out about this book right now, and it didn't matter, like I said, I claimed it to review, is in The Long, Low Whistle, a woman searching for answers about her father's death decades ago joins a group of cryptid hunters to penetrate the abandoned mine where he was last seen. Sold, done, going to read it. But seriously, I also want to talk about this too, because Laurel Hightower, one of the best books I've ever read is Crossroads that she wrote, still stays with me. I believe that it is the beginning of this golden age of grief horror that we're seeing. And it has been out of print, but it's coming back as well.
Ooh,
so
good.
I'm very excited about that because I want more people to read it. And I just think that Laurel Hightower is one of our best voices right now in that novella space. The way she has control of that short format is just remarkable. So I'm just so many reasons to be excited. And again, that series in general, just go buy all of the books. Just trust that they're good.
Totally agreed. I'm a big fan of that series.
So I'm going to keep going to start off December with another book that I grabbed right away when I was doing my horror preview because it's an author I really like, Christy DeMeester. And Christy is back with a book called Dark Sisters. So I was, again, totally on it. And it got blurbed by Rachel Harrison. Again, totally on it. A bonfire beacon, a balm, a rallying cry, a beautifully written, mesmerizing horror, epic, magnificent. And I was like, where do I sign up? And I'm like, oh, wait, I can just sign myself up. So it's fierce because I wouldn't expect anything less from Christy. I've read her other books. Captivating novel, and it's horror and historical fiction colliding. Oh, and another curse that's bridging generations. There we must have a theme going on. Binding the fates of 3 women. And, I am a sucker for that story where 3 different people, I already talked about the Bewitching, did the same thing at the very beginning, how these fates are all sort of tied up together. So Anne Bolton is a healer facing persecution for witchcraft, bargaining with a dark entity for protection, but the fire she unleashes will reverberate for centuries. So Mary Shepard is a picture-perfect wife in a suffocating community who falls for Sharon, another woman, and begins a forbidden affair that could destroy them both. And then there's Camilla Burson, the rebellious daughter of a preacher who defies conformist expectations to uncover an ancient power as her father's flock spirals into crisis. So we've got 3 women, 3 centuries, one legacy of fury that unites them all with love and power. And that legacy of fury, love, and power refuses to die. Sounds like it's going to be awesome, right? Across the time, women who don't want to conform, curses, preachers, bad religions, right? Women not being able to love who they want. It's just, it's going to be great. I'm so excited.
Amazing. All right. My first for December. And again, there are not a ton of the horror publishing pipeline really does slow down in November, December. which, as do most publishing pipelines. However, there's still some really good shit out there, including Down Came the Spiders by Ali Russell. So this is another middle grade novel. Ali writes middle grade horror so well. Her debut, It Came from the Trees, was just an absolute joy. I love her. I'm not someone who seeks out middle grade, not because I think there's anything wrong with it, but just it's not written for me. I don't have kids, but if Ali writes it, I am there. And this is actually her second new release this year. She also has Mystery James Digs Her Own Grave in October. But this one, I love a creature feature, and this is billed as Arachnophobia meets Five Nights at Freddy's. It's about a 12-year-old girl who is obsessed with spiders. She loves them. She thinks they're the coolest. And she goes to a classmate's Halloween party and she finds a species of spider she's never seen before. What could go wrong? They're really strong. They're really good at camouflage. They're really good at jumping. And all of a sudden, she realizes how dangerous these spiders are. And she and her friends go to find the parents who are chaperoning this Halloween party, only to find that they have all been immobilized in spider webs. And so the only people who can save the rest of these kids are Andy and her friends. So, and Ali is really, really good at that element of middle grade horror, which is, when you're writing for an age group like that, you're doing this sort of almost like didactic, like, hey, here are some issues that you, 12-year-old reader, might also be going through. And she's so good and so sensitive at addressing those, while also just scaring the pants off anyone of any age who's reading her books. And she is a wonderful human being, and I cannot recommend enough that readers of all ages go pick up her books.
Oh, I agree. She's a great person, and It Came from the Trees was great.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to keep going with December, and I got lucky because I was having trouble finding another December book as well, but a book that's YA. See, Rob, not, there is a difference.
Yeah.
YA, that I thought, that I was excited about, which originally was supposed to come out in September, got moved to December. And that's Twin Tides, and I'm going to butcher the person's name, and I'm really sorry, but Hailey Nguyen. So basically, first of all, it's horror, it's twins, it has a great cover, I'm just in. But they're long lost twin sisters, okay? And they're going to unravel the mystery behind their mother's disappearance and face the family betrayal that ultimately separated them in this breathtaking, speculative young adult thriller, they call it. But I looked into it. It's horror. They're just afraid to call it that because here we go. We got Aria and Castile. They have different last names. One's Nguyen and one's Ha. They're identical twins. But they just learned that when a police officer told them their mother is no longer a missing person. She's been found dead in Minnesota, a place neither of them had a connection to. Aria's from D.C., where she's been struggling to pay their sick aunt's medical bills, and only does so by writing her classmates' papers for extra cash. Meanwhile, Caliste is a successful influencer in L.A., not that their food mogul father cares. Both have dreamt of the moment they will see their mother again, of being happy again, but they could have never imagined this nightmare. Here's the thing. Their mom's body apparently hasn't aged, and there's a bruise on her neck. So they go to this quaint little town of I can't even say it, a quaint little town where a ghoul supposedly haunts the waters. Caliste and Aria must delve into their family's past and find their mother's murderers. And it's really great. Mother's murderer, sorry. It's got the small town because they don't want to give up the secrets, right? And this idea that these twins were separated, one raised by the mother and the aunt and one raised by the father. It's going to be great. It's going to have a lot of the issues that teens want in their stories. It's going to have a mystery, small town horror, and, some supernatural shenanigans.
Wonderful.
Sweet.
And my final December pick is Broken Trail by Amanda Cassile. This is coming out from Camcat. I met Amanda at, I think, Spooktastic last year, and she is delightful. This is her debut. So this is a novel about a woman named Clara who is a criminal psychologist, and she has become obsessed with one of her patients, a young woman who allegedly murdered her boyfriend on a remote hiking trail. And so Clara decides to go hike this exact same trail with her 2 daughters in tow. What could go wrong? Of course, once they're there, everything goes horribly wrong. She starts having violent visions and dreams. Some mysterious presence on the trail confronts them and splits them into separate groups, and it becomes very quickly a survival narrative where she has to confront the thing that is chasing them through this forest, reclaim her daughters, and deal with her own demons and issues. And I love a good like wilderness survival horror. I'm really excited to read this one. And yeah, if you're someone who, especially if you liked Wonderland by Zoya Staj, or like The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon by Stephen King, this is right in that same vein.
That's cool.
Awesome. That wraps up the lists that we have, but I just gotta say there's going back to September. I'm breaking all the rules because here's what I did. I wrote down a list of like other books that could easily have made my choices, and that's 15 easily that aren't the 6 that we already spoke of within that, other like much larger. So like what other I know one of you wrote down one in the kind of marginalia here of like, but what other September ones are at least like, hey, I'm also excited about, because we couldn't talk about it. I also want to at least shout out really quick.
I mean, Rachel Harrison, Play Nice. Yeah. Play Nice by Rachel Harrison. Her newest book. The woman publishes a book every single year. I do not know how she does it. I assume she used the same like clone factory that Clay Mcleod Chapman uses. I think that this is her best one yet. It is the scariest thing she has written since her first book, The Return, and I just love it so much. She did the unthinkable, which is that she made me love a character who's a social media influencer.
and I'm so excited that I get to do a couple stops on her book tour with me. Like, I'm just so excited. Speaking of influencers, this one, Breathe In, Bleed Out by Brian McCauley. So this is from Poison Pen Press, which is with Source Books. And I've been talking to the people at Source Books, and they are ecstatic about this book because, they've done a little bit of horror, but it was mostly like Darcy Coates, getting her. And this is like new voices, also with influencers. So it's somebody who went on a harrowing wilderness retreat, Emily, and returned without her fiance. And no one actually knows what happened the day Ben died. And Hannah doesn't want to talk about it. And it involves a restorative spiritual retreat in Joshua Tree with some influencers. So I'm excited about that one. What about you, Rob?
Well, I'm just going to shout out the ones I have arcs for. So this is the Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre by Philip Ricassi. All you got to know about this is it's a slasher that takes place in a retirement home. Like, what more?
I read it. It is the Thursday Murder Club meets I Was a Teenage Slasher, and I'm not kidding. Like, it was fun. It was fun.
I was a septuagenarian slasher.
Seriously. But she's the final girl, but it has that sort of I know what's going on vibe. But yeah, that's awesome. My gosh. Do you have another one you want to talk about?
Yeah, Scream With Me, which is Horror Films and the Rise of American Feminism, 1968 to 1980. Again, another nonfiction. She is it's by Eleanor Johnson. She is a Columbia University professor, and it's an exploration of horror movies reflecting the larger cultural evolution around women's rights, women's bodily autonomy, through movies like obviously Rosemary's Baby and The Omen and The Exorcist. And obviously I am, given my particular area of interest, I'm very excited to read this one.
I'm excited about Bitter Corella's debut, Moonflow. Mm-hmm. So Bitter Corella, those of you know, does the web series. What is the name of it?
Midnight Pals,
right? Which horror authors as children sitting around a fire talking about things, and it is hilarious. Again, this one I'm super excited about because I really love Bitter's imagination, sense of humor, all of those things. So I think it's going to be great. So this is like an eldritch horror in the woods. So I see something out there in the woods. It doesn't have a face. They call it the King's Breakfast. One bite and you can understand the full scope of the universe. One bite and you can commune with forgotten gods beyond human comprehension. What could go wrong? So, and the main character is a trans woman who makes her living growing mushrooms. And so a bad harvest leaves her desperate. She's got to do something. Nothing could go wrong. Nothing.
Nothing could go wrong. How about Galloway's Gospel, Sam Rebeline?
I'm
reading it now. Me too.
So continuing the stories that take place in Renfield County, this one almost directly follows the events of the Poorly Made, but also time shifts to another, like a later time, and it involves like what Sam has described as like the Renfield County Men in Black who try and like keep all this like evil chaos in order, and there's a cult around like the imagined drawings of a high school girl like that, that people think is real, and they build a cult around it. So it sounds bananas, and the cover is just stunning. And Sam is such a refreshing writer, so very excited about that one.
Delight. I'm going to limit myself to one more. We could spend an entire episode on September, but it is gotta be Spread Me by Sarah Gailey for me. What a fucking book. This one is for real freaks only. This is truly like Becky, I think you had left the room when I was talking about this on the Librarians Day Buzz Books panel. Yeah. But I made everyone raise their hand. I was like, if you're a freak, raise your hand. And a bunch of people did. And I was like, no, if you're a real freak, raise it higher, because this book is for you. This is a riff on The Thing. It's about a research team way out in the desert, middle of nowhere. They find a specimen in the sand and they bring it into the base, which you should never do. Why would you ever do that? But where Gailey really like puts their own stamp on this story is that all of the researchers inside this base are sleeping with each other in various configurations because they're out in the middle of nowhere. They have nothing else to do. And the team leader, who is our POV character, is not involved in any of this, these various sort of like assignations. She is, however, sexually attracted to viruses. And I'm going to leave it there because anything further would be a spoiler, but this is a novella. It's a really quick read. It has got some gnarly body horror that's also like very erotic. And I am frankly gobsmacked that a Big Five publisher is putting this book out. I will say that. It is wonderful.
I did a post on my blog for librarians recently about the influx of relationships in books with people and non-human things. So this is right up.
Awesome. I'll do one more.
Yeah.
The reissue kind of expanded version of Man Fuck This House by Brian Asman. I didn't read it. I didn't read the original, but I can't think of a better haunted house title than Man Fuck This House. And this one adds, I think it's like 6 additional stories to the original one novella. And I don't know, just it sounds cool. I love a haunted house, so that's going on my list.
And I'm going to do one last one, and it's a book I've already read and reviewed, and it's We Are Always Tender with Our Dead, which is the Burnt Sparrow, book 1 of 3. It's a trilogy by Eric LaRocca, and I did get to speak to him about this I reviewed it for Book List, but I did get to speak to him about it for Library Journal, and he does see this as one book. But I'm going to tell you, I was really impressed the way that this is a book 1. It's a complete story, but it has you ready for the next one. And it's like, I said, like, move over Derry, Maine, right? Like Sparrow, New Hampshire. Burnt Sparrow, New Hampshire is way worse. So it's a planned epic trilogy spread out over multiple decades. So here's just the way it starts. Book 1 begins disturbingly as hundreds of townspeople lay dead in the middle of the road in the center of town, the victims of an attack at a Christmas parade. allegedly perpetrated by 3 faceless humanoids. That's where I'm going to leave it at. And our 2 main narrators are a 17-year-old Rupert and then Gladys, the wife of the richest man in town. And I'm going to tell you, it balances extreme disgust and awe-inspiring wonder, but it also is a complete story, like I said, on its own, and it gets you wanting to read the rest. I was very impressed by it. And, the fact that he is committed to telling this, what he's saying is going to be a 900-page story when he's the master of short horror, it was really well done. Like I said, the first story is close, but there's like ephemera throughout. So you know that there's more coming. You know that this town has a lot of stuff happening, but that story is closed. But man, the implications for what's going to happen next. Oh, it's great. It's really good.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Great cover on
especially
that one
since
as well.
Even his novels though are like, they probably don't break 250 pages.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is a real undertaking, like you said.
It was good. It was good.
That's very exciting. Well, we could, as we said, continue to talk about just September, but also so many more titles. But we gotta stop at some point. So I want to thank both of you, Becky and Emily, for joining for another one of these, and hopefully come December, we will be gearing up for talking about the first half of 2026.
I gotta start working on the 2026 list. It is breathing down my neck already.
Well, and it's funny because me and Rob get early access to prepare for this podcast, because usually we try to time that podcast with the drop of the list. So I am excited.
But on that note, I will just, use Emily's list as a resource.
Yes.
It's fantastic. And I have done this several times, at least 4 or 5 times this year so far. Use the submission little form at the bottom to suggest titles that aren't on there yet. And like Tom's Crossing didn't get announced until like a month and a half ago or something like that. And it's technically not horror, but it's Daniel
it's on
Levsky,
there anyway.
So
because the author.
Yeah. So use that little suggestion form if you don't see a title that you think deserves to be on there, to help Emily make the most comprehensive list possible.
Always happy when I see your contributions pop up, Rob.
Oh, I didn't know if it was anonymous. You actually saw who was doing those.
No, it logs the email of the person who does it. So
I'm not trying to be the teacher's pet. I just want to get the stuff out.
Oh, but Rob, you are the teacher's pet.
But thanks both of you so much. Emily, congratulations again on the Stoker. Becky, on the imminent launch of your amazing book. And I just love that we get together a couple of times a year and do this. So thank you.
Wonderful.
I love it too.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
so much.